Climbers, on a scale of 1 to 10, how certain are you that you know the difference between market penetration and exposure? We're going to test you on this today, and this is going to be a fun exercise, so stick around.
All right.
Welcome to the Climb! This is a show dedicated to helping singers, songwriters, and indie artists like you create leverage in the music business, baby. Leverage is your elixir. That's the answer to all the struggles and problems that you have. Can't get the right musicians in your band. Can't get the right publishers to listen to your song. Can't get the record labels interested. Can't get the management companies interested. Can't get the booking agents interested. Guess what? Leverage. They come out of the woodwork. They're like friggin', I don't want to say cockroaches because that sounds derogatory, but they just show up, man. Like they'll just show up when you start having leverage. That's why we call it the C.L.I.M.B, C.L.I.M.B, creating leverage in the music business. That's a Baxter from my good friend and co-host, Mr. Brent Baxter. Brent's an award-winning hit songwriter with cuts by Alan Jackson, Randy Travis, Lady A, Joe Nichols, and more. He's got multiple number ones in Southern gospel in the last few years. He's got a top 10 in Australia. He's got a song that's hitting the airwaves right now as we speak, right? When this show drops.
Yeah, hopefully by the time the show drops, I'll have like 2 on the dropping in Southern and hopefully starting to chart.
Giddy to the up. Giddy up. All right. I love it. And what I love about Brent is he's helping songwriters like you do what he does, which is become a pro songwriter by teaching you how to write like a pro, do business like a pro, and then on the regular, he gives you opportunities to make relationships with pros, to get heard, to be seen, to be discovered. And by the time you get to that point, man, you already got your ducks in a row. And you're going to be able to take advantage of that. It's going to be more than one swing at the plate.
Uh-huh.
You can find Brent very easily at songwritingpro.com. That's songwritingpro.com.
And I would like to introduce you to my co-host, Johnny Dwinell. Johnny owns Daredevil Production. They're breaking artists digitally by identifying new fans through data. It's complicated, but he got the big old brain. If you're an artist looking to increase your streams, blow up your video views, sell more live show tickets, and get discovered by new fans, TV, and music industry pros, then Daredevil Production can help. Daredevil has worked with multi-platinum artists like Colin Ray, Tracy Lawrence, Ty Herndon, and Andy Griggs, just to name a few. You can find Johnny at daredevilproduction.com. That is production, singular, no S, and there's no S because there is no other Johnny D.
Let's talk market penetration. Let's talk exposure.
All right. So it's going to be a pop quiz.
Penetration and exposure. This sounds like it could go a lot of ways.
Yes, it does. And I'm just going to try not to make jokes.
Brent starts to sweat like he's not sure what I'm going to come out with.
Oh, my goodness. My son has to edit this podcast. Okay.
He's 18.
I have to have a talk after this one.
He's 18. He needs to know.
Dude, he's 19. He's almost 20.
Oh, my goodness sakes.
Craziness.
Stop that. It makes me feel old.
Oh, man.
But hey, guys, this is what we're going to talk about today. I mean, there's so many artists that I see, and frankly, industry people. And you know what? Like super big, mega industry pros, like they understand market penetration, I think, versus exposure on broadcast platforms. But then on digital, they don't.
Uh-huh.
And so I think when we're breaking down to the fundamentals and we talk about this, and we're going to take a quiz today, I want you to play along. This is really going to help you get your expectations in line and help you put together a more solid promotional strategy and understand what it's going to take to get you to a certain place, like in a specific market or a group of markets. So before we do that, though, let's take care of some business. Join the C.L.I.M.B community. If you haven't done so, go to facebook.com/groups/the C.L.I.M.B community. You have to ask to be let in. We let everybody in. If you're not following any one of 3 rules, you'll be roadhoused out. This is not the place to spray and pray.
Uh-huh.
But we want to hear, we want to support you. We want to love all over you, hug on your neck artistically and all that kind of stuff. But you got to put everything in the right place. Every week there are posts that we want to hear about your gigs. We want to hear about your wins. We want to hear about your new music, all this stuff. Just put it in the right place, man. Don't put it in the feed. And you want to put something in the feed, make sure it's for everybody.
Exactly.
Make sure it's entertaining, educational, or inspirational for, well, who's in here? My gosh, it's singers, songwriters, and indie artists like
you.
Right on. So, I mean, hey, if you're going to roll your eyes, if you came to think about it this way, if you came to the climb community and the feed was nothing but like blasting you with gigs
Uh-huh.
and news music and stuff like that, are you going to like listen to any of that crap?
No.
No, you're going to be like rolling your eyes. Like, where do I put my post up? Like,
Right.
so just think about it that way, man. You know, like what would you want to see in the feed? And then put it in there and God bless, go do it. Right.
Exactly. Make the feed you wanna see.
We got some wins.
Yes, we have some wins. Every Wednesday, we post new heights. It's where we encourage you to share your wins with us so we can all find them in one spot and we can all celebrate. And that is what happens. I love seeing people like Steve Lombardo, Sunday Joe Graham, Will Grinnell, and others posting, like adding comments onto other people's wins and giving attaboys and attagirls and encouragement. And that's just super cool. So we love seeing that.
Participating. Love it.
Participating and enjoying the success of others. It was really cool because I got to hang out with a climber the other day and a songwriting pro member, Carrie Latham.
Mhm.
And so we were hanging out before my write on Friday, and she's talking about the songwriting pro community, but also the climb communities this way as well, is like so uplifting and encouraging versus some other groups. She's like, I had to get out of that. Everybody was being like nasty with each other, got too negative and that kind of stuff. But man, we have good positive community, so I'm happy about that. But anyway, let's share some wins. We don't have time for all of them, but we have time for a couple. So let's see here. We have Chandler Williams said had a great experience with the song feedback through NSAI, got helpful advice, took the advice, and then when I sent the rewrite back, the evaluator told me I nailed it. Encouragement is always a win. So congrats, Chandler Williams, on that. We have Brian Mullen.
Congrats, Chandler. Sorry.
Yes, Brian Mullen. Hopefully, I'm saying that last name correctly. Finished song number 2 this week. First one I wrote solo without a co-write. So, congrats, Brian, on finishing song number 2 for the week. And I hope you get many, many more in the weeks to come. So,
Way to go, Brian.
yeah. So, congrats to those and to others who posted stuff. People like Kathy Wallace, who said so proud I had a song picked up by Steve Block for a second listen. Got some great feedback, which is awesome because Steve Block is an independent A&R. He does A&R for Doug Johnson over Black River. He works for Doug, and he's running the label over there, and he works for other people, and he's pitching songs. So, hey, got picked up for a second listen. So congrats, Kathy. And so all y'all climbers, keep on climbing. Good stuff happening.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast or follow it, depending on what platform you consume the podcast on, and tell a friend about it.
That's right.
That's the big deal. Tell a friend.
All right, let's get into this. What we got?
We got a reputation. Spread it around.
That's right.
All right. So let's get into it, guys. Market penetration versus exposure. Brent, I'm becoming increasingly aware that artists and high-level industry people are either not aware of the difference between market penetration and exposure, or they've forgotten about it, or they just sort of inherently know about it in terms of broadcast because it's muscle memory,
Mm-hmm.
but in digital they don't. They just it baffles them, right?
Yeah.
So I thought today let's discuss the differences. We're going to take a little quiz that I think is going to provide some clarity, and I want all climbers to participate this in. In fact, like when we post this in the climb community, after you hear it, man, it's not that many questions. I think it's like 11 questions or 12 questions. Post your score. I want to hear your score, right?
Uh-huh.
I want to know that you know. And Brent, you're going to be my guinea pig in that.
Oh, yippee.
Sorry.
Should have had more coffee.
So let's start by just defining both of these words, right? Market penetration.
Yes.
The extent to which a product is recognized and bought by customers in a particular market.
Okay. So that's penetration.
So what's a key word you think in that sentence right there?
Bought. That's a pretty
What's
important.
the second key word?
Recognized.
Yeah, right?
Uh-huh.
And we talk about subconscious recognition, right? Being able to recognize, oh, that's the Nicotine Dolls.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's definitely Eddie Van Halen. Like, how do you get to know Eddie Van Halen's guitar tone, his style, unless you've heard it enough, right?
Right.
Like, that's market penetration, right? That's Boston. I know that for sure, right?
Uh-huh. But it leaves an impression. There's something left. It changed you in a way, right?
Yeah.
It had an effect.
Yeah, and it's recognizable, and then, of course, once it's recognizable and you like it,
Mhm.
then you're gonna buy it.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna consume it, right? Like in the case of streaming.
Right.
So, let's talk about exposure. The state of being exposed to contact with something.
It used the word to help define the word. That's cheating. But
It's kinda cheating, isn't it?
it is kind of cheating. Exposure. It's when you've been exposed to something. No, you've seen it, you heard it, you tasted it. You've had it's rubbed it's coming to your world, right?
That's right.
At some point, it came across your 5 senses, one of your 5 senses.
So market penetration means exposure for sure.
Well, it contains exposure. It cannot happen without exposure.
That's right.
Exposure is a precondition, requirement for market penetration.
That's right. But exposure is not market penetration. Right?
Correct.
Like when you have market penetration, you have exposure by default, right? But when you have exposure, you do not have market penetration. And so this is the difference that I want to discuss. Which one do you think is more important?
Well, it's a little chicken and the egg. You cannot get market penetration without exposure, I wouldn't guess, right?
Right?
Because how else are they going to get to know you? But exposure by itself doesn't pay the bills. People die of exposure. Ultimately, you got to get to market penetration. That's where activity happens.
Say that again. That just happened. People die of exposure.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's not, doesn't,
Artists die of exposure,
yeah,
but
doesn't pay the bills.
we create new life with market penetration. Uh-oh, that just
Mhm.
happened.
Exactly.
Oh my God. So yeah, you're right. Both are very important. It is a chicken and the egg thing. Exposure is worth more and is more powerful, let's say. It's more effective when it's saddled on the back of market penetration, right? Exposure by itself is not helping, right?
Is it kind of a cyclical thing where you got to get exposed to people enough to penetrate the market? And then you penetrate a market, then you add additional exposure on top of that, and that's adding fuel to a fire that's burning. Is that kind of thing?
Yeah, no, but well, it's like the difference between like seeing something really cool once, right?
Mhm.
But then all of a sudden, when that moment starts to happen where all of a sudden you're on the radio, you're playing Saturday Night Live, you're coming through town on tour, and for like 1 week, you're just like everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Like that's market penetration.
Mhm.
So both are very important when you're setting expectations, but expectations on, what should happen after a certain amount of budget is spent on marketing and promotion. You just can't afford to confuse these two things.
Mhm.
And I see a lot of that happening with digital, right? Because it's still just so new to the music industry that there just a lack of understanding of this, right? So let's just take the quiz and then we'll kind of unpack this a little bit more. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of feels to me like exposure is the action and market penetration is the desired result of the exposure. Almost feels like cause and effect. Like if you do the exposure correctly, it can help lead to market penetration, but it doesn't always.
Well, I'll tell you well, okay, you know what? I don't wanna say anything more because I wanna take
Okay,
this
give me the
quiz,
quiz.
and
All
then
right.
we'll talk after that,
All right.
but you're right. So, you got 1 or 2 answers for every one of these questions, guys, okay?
Okay.
Market penetration is one answer, and exposure is the other. So, market penetration or exposure, cover a Rolling Stone.
Oh, cover Rolling Stone, exposure.
Yeah, 1 time, right?
There's one time, bunch of people see it walking past the newsstand aisle, whatever.
Now, 2 things could be true at the same time. Cover a Rolling Stone, total bucket list thing for me, like, total dream
Yeah.
of mine to be on there with my band, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's something nobody can take away from you, right? You're gonna frame that stuff, put that right up on the wall, forget about it,
Mhm.
and show everybody, and I might even get a friggin' tattoo of the cover of Rolling Stone in my band that I was on, and I would do that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just so cool, right?
Yeah.
Even though I can't stand parts of the magazine, but it is just exposure. If you got the cover right now, you're gonna get exposure. You're gonna get a little bump, right?
Mhm.
Maybe in your streams. You might get 5,000 streams. Maybe it's 10 or 20,000 streams, right? But then next week or the week after, there's somebody else on the cover and you're gone,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Because some of this has got some gray area in it, right?
Okay.
How about a big tour, opening up for a huge, like, national, international, worldwide tour? Like with, let's say, with like, if you're a rock band, you open up for Guns N' Roses or Aerosmith.
I mean, I think for the people in that area, it's exposure because the next night you're in a different zip code, right?
Yeah, it's exposure.
Yeah.
So it's necessary exposure. Like you have to have, like you need to. I mean, just bottom line is the more bands are touring, and the more they're out there consistently touring,
Mhm.
the more they're being consistently exposed, the more they can create market penetration, right?
Yeah.
But just to give you the cold hard facts, so Guns N' Roses, when they were first signed, we've talked about this before. That album's a stiff for the first year.
Mhm.
But that first year, when that album comes out in 1987, they went on tour with Aerosmith.
Yeah.
If that wasn't the biggest tour in the country that year,
Whew.
it was in the top 3.
Mhm.
top grossing tours, right? It was huge.
Yeah.
And that tour was worth 60,000 albums for Guns N' Roses.
Hmm.
Not enough to keep your record deal.
Right.
And why weren't they selling anymore? Because that tour happened before they got on MTV and before they could get them on the radio. It just, they
Mhm.
couldn't get them on the radio. And it wasn't until the very bitter end when they got them on that one spin on MTV,
Mhm.
which happened in 1988. The album dropped in 1987. Okay. They're about to drop them and they spin it one time. Now that one spin is exposure, but then MTV, the phones light up because everybody's like, oh my God, this is amazing. MTV shrugs their shoulders like, I guess people like it. We should put this in rotation.
Right.
Right. And now you're on your way to what?
Market
Market
penetration.
penetration.
Yep.
Right. And then as soon as it gets into rotation on MTV, all the radio stations are like, hey, we should put that into rotation. Right. And
Mhm.
so then they put it into rotation. So you'd think like all those shows that they did
Mhm.
would be like market penetration. But you're right, Brent. You made a really good point. It's just one show, one night in one market.
Yeah.
And then you're gone. And now, how else are you being exposed to Guns N' Roses at this point? Because they're not on the radio and they're not on MTV. So what do you do?
And we don't have all the social media, so they're gone.
Exactly.
They're ghosts
Right.
again. If you didn't buy their record, you're not hearing their music again.
Okay. Next, super big local show, like opening up for like a national act or something.
Well, we just same answer as before. It's exposure, right? You're one
Exposure.
night,
Yeah.
one show, one place.
Right. So, guys, when you're
It ain't a
talking,
bad thing. I'm not dogging it.
what's that?
I'm not dogging it. It's not a bad thing.
No, it's a good thing.
Those are good things,
But
right?
it's like what do you expect from it, right?
Mhm.
Like you can have okay, I'll give you a really good example. Like when our career kind of started, we opened up for this band in Milwaukee. They were a huge, huge Minneapolis band. They're called Hurricane Alice. They ended up getting a deal on Atlantic. Just a great freaking band, man. Just really cool guys. They loved us. They treated us like kings.
Mhm.
But they loved us so much from the Milwaukee show. They're like, you guys, there are 40 bands right now that'll give their left arm to open up for us at this Christmas Day night show. We want you guys to do it.
Mhm.
You come up and do it, man. You guys are just so different than everybody else. We love you guys. You've got it if you want it. And we're like, hell yeah. So we went and did it.
Yeah.
Well, so that one show, exposure, but then they loved us so much. Like we ended up opening up for them in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis, like probably 7 or 8 times.
Mm.
And because of that, like that became market penetration because we had enough consistency
Yeah.
in the exposure that people like never forgot who we were, right?
Yeah.
Like they recognized us. We were recognizable.
Yeah.
We got market penetration from that. So that big local show is exposure, but hey, a relationship with a big club venue, right?
Mhm.
Is like Mackenzie O'Brien, one of our artists in Chicago.
Mhm.
She has a relationship with these cats that own like 4 clubs around Chicago. I think they own more than that, but there's 4 that I know of off the top of my head. One
Yeah.
of them's called Joe's on Weed. Weed is the street, right? But it's funny.
Mhm.
Joe's on Weed.
Yeah.
And these guys just love her. They just believe in her, right?
Mhm.
And so whenever their national's going to come through without a support act, a direct support act, she gets the call. Okay.
Cool.
So she gets repeatedly put in front of these audiences and she's working on her way to some market penetration in a market like Chicago, which is a nice sized market.
Yeah. It's a nice size market.
Okay. So next one, market penetration or exposure, magazine article.
Exposure.
Yeah. How about 3 magazine articles?
Now you're if it's in front of the same people, right? It's getting in front of it's turning more toward market penetration.
Let's say it's 3 magazine articles from 3 different magazines, but same kind of audience, I guess.
Same audience. I'd say that's leaning toward penetration then, right? Because there's that repetition. It's like
No, it's exposure. It's exposure, because hey, man, like, do you read all of the magazines from the country music genre?
no.
Right? So each one sort of has their own little piece of the pie, right? They have their own market share.
Mhm.
And so is it good to have magazine? Again, we're not saying one's good and one's bad.
Right.
We're just know the difference between the two. So like if you were to go out and get a big tour opening up for some band, like this dream tour, and it's going to be great. Is that going to be good for your brand? Of course it is.
Mhm.
You're going to go out there and get in front of these people. That's great. But if you're not doing something to affect market penetration beyond that tour, then it's just going to be exposure and you shouldn't expect it to change your life, right?
Right.
Like Guns N' Roses opening up for Aerosmith, and they're on the radio in rotation, and they're on MTV in rotation, they sell way more than 60,000, obviously,
Right. Yeah.
right? They sell 30,000,000, but they sold 30,000,000. It just happened later, but it didn't happen on that tour. But I mean, that's the point about that exercise is, man, that's just about as big as you can get on that.
Mhm.
They're both on the same label, so they were able to set that up. And holy crap, but only 60,000 records. And that's just not enough to do it back then
Mhm.
because they didn't have some sort of market penetration in place. So, why do I say that? Because you know what? Like in the beginning, you have to be judicious about the budget that you have. And I just see so many artists going for PR
Yeah.
because here's the thing, like PR is only as strong. I don't care how good the PR agent is. It's only as strong as like your newsworthiness.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so in the beginning, when you're a nobody, when you're a debut artist with a debut single and all you've got is good music, but you don't have any exposure really, and you don't have any market penetration, and there's nothing going on, you're going to spend a boatload of money, $2,500 a month for guaranteed 6 months or whatever, to get, I don't know, 3, 4 magazine articles if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And so is that juice worth the squeeze? Is that a good spend on your money right then and there? Or is it better to wait until you have some market penetration? And then remember how we talked about exposures, it's much more powerful on the heels or on the saddled on top of market penetration, right?
Right.
So then all of a sudden, those magazine articles are going to mean more than that. How about this? Local morning show, market penetration or exposure?
Exposure.
That's right. You're one and done, right? You're in and out.
Yeah.
Now that can be good for a live event, right?
Mhm.
Like we certainly had when we doing the Nashville Nights thing down in Phoenix, we have a relationship. Josh has a relationship with one of the big, I think it's an NBC station there, and they just love him. And he's been on multiple times. And so anytime he's doing something, they're going to put him on the air.
Yeah.
It's that kind of cool relationship. And so I know that we've had people show up to Nashville Nights that have seen that specifically because we asked them, hey, who saw us on the morning shows? A bunch of people raised their hands. And so that works, right? Or it's like really good for this is happening today or tomorrow kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Very powerful. But are you going to be recognized after that? No.
No.
Right? Are you recognizable? No. How about this? Let's step it up. Contestant on a talent show like American Idol, The Voice, America's Got Talent. Let's say you make top 10 American Idol.
Mhm. It's still exposure. I mean, a lot of you're gonna have a high name recognition for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's it. It's
Yeah.
exposure. It's a lot of exposure,
Mhm.
but it's not market penetration because when it's done, it's done. And if you don't have something going on after that, it's crickets, right?
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
like one of the guys I'm trying to get on the show right now is a guy named Dave Finley. You might have heard of him. Great writer, incredible voice. He did really well on the talent show called The Voice. Okay.
Mhm.
And so far, we know a lot of people that have been on The Voice, Brent, you and I.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I've had lots of artists that are constantly being pinged by them. America's Got Talent, American Idol. It's like all the same sort of, they want to get you on the show if you got a good story, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, this guy's on A Voice, does really, really well. And he's the only guy that just literally said, okay, this is a boatload of exposure,
Mhm.
but he understood it's exposure and not market. He's not expecting to walk out and be famous
Right.
and be able to just roll into a record deal or roll into some kind of management deal. He's not expecting even that huge amount of exposure to change his life without some sort of market penetration.
Yep.
So he goes and he starts doing digital ads right after The Voice,
Mhm.
and he didn't even know what he's doing, but he did some.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I mean, this guy has turned his nothing business at that point, just a bunch of talent and no cash flow,
Mhm.
into. So I don't mean that derogatorily. I'm just saying like the business wasn't there into $200,000-$300,000 a year now.
That's awesome.
That's cash flow, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because he realized like, okay, I got this exposure. So right now I've got a little bit of recognition. And if I put together a market penetration thing, which is consistency, right?
Mhm.
Then I can make something out of this, right? All right. How about this? Light rotation on terrestrial radio. So that's 15 spins a week in a market, in a specific market.
I'd say still exposure.
Exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gonna pick up some new fans? Yep.
Yep.
You sure are. Are you gonna have small percentage of that radio listening audience that just happens to catch that? Luckily enough that every time they turn the radio, your song is on. It's like one of the 15 times that you're on that week.
Yeah.
Are you gonna do that? Yeah, you're gonna get some of that. But is it the majority of the marketplace? No. So do you have market penetration? No.
No.
How about this? Let's go the other way. Heavy rotation for 1 month on terrestrial radio in a specific market.
I mean, it's the same thing as being on The Voice.
Yeah.
It's exposure. It's gone.
What's next? What happens after that, right? If you're there and you're gone, you're gonna get a lot of exposure. You're gonna get big exposure for 1 month,
Mhm.
but it's not enough to make it recognizable for enough people,
Right.
right? And now some people are you're gonna get some recognition now,
Mhm.
but it's not market penetration, right?
Mhm.
Now, how about this? Medium to heavy rotation on terrestrial radio for 3 to 6 months.
I'm just going with any one particular thing is not gonna be market penetration. I'm gonna say it's exposure.
That's gonna lean towards market penetration, though.
Okay. We're finally getting there, huh?
You know why? Because you're talking about 40 to 70 spins a week for 3 months is gonna be 12 weeks, 6 months is gonna be 24 weeks.
Mhm.
That's just an onslaught of consistency, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the reason why some people are so baffled on digital and they forget the fundamentals because the whole hustle on broadcast was to get on radio or get on MTV. And once you
Mhm.
got on radio and once you got on MTV, man, the frequency part was taken care of because it was built into the machine with the rotational format programming,
Yeah.
right? They didn't have to think about creating the frequency like they do on digital, right?
Yeah.
So how about one music video on a digital platform?
It's just on there? Just distributed?
Yeah, like on YouTube.
Nah. I mean, it's not even an exposure.
Yeah,
To be honest, it's exposure at best. Right, at best.
at best, right? How about a viral video? How about one viral video on a digital platform?
Oh, that'd be exposure as well.
Mhm. So if you think about like, okay, the best story you could probably pull out of this, the best lottery ticket you could win would be like the Chainsmokers
Mhm.
with Selfie, right? That is not viral. That's like nuclear viral, right? Just incredibly viral. So viral, all the record labels come a calling and they wanna work with them, and so they get this incredible amount of exposure, and they went to work with the label and started putting out regular content very quickly, and were able to back that up with a plan that created market penetration,
Yeah.
and they're huge now, which, by the way, didn't involve radio so much.
Well, so basically what their exposure with the mega viral video created was the opportunity to do more work.
Was the opportunity
Right?
to do more work that could have a platform, right?
Yeah.
And could create consistency.
Yeah, so it didn't solve everything, it created new opportunities to do more work. Right.
That's a good point. I
It
see what you're
didn't
saying now.
fix everything.
Yeah,
It didn't change, it didn't make us famous or whatever. Like, oh, good, you created the opportunity to do more work and get more exposure and create market penetration.
that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. How about this? Really good, consistent, organic content on your social media platforms.
It's organic. If it's getting to the same people, then I think that could lead to market penetration.
No.
No, just exposure. I'm getting worse as we go.
Yeah, because it's organic content, that was the key.
Okay.
So, if you are a god at social media and you know exactly how to maximize the algorithms, you have 3% of your followers are seeing the organic content.
Okay. Well, I was thinking about those 3% is what I'm saying about like you're penetrating. It's a very small number, but like, oh, if those three are seeing it, then you are creating it for a very, very small pool.
Well, so okay, so that brings up a nuance. That brings up a good nuance.
You're famous to them,
True,
the small number.
true,
So that's what I meant by that.
true, 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 true. So, but know that it's 3%, right?
Right.
So now, if you're Taylor Swift, you got 150 million people. That 3% is pretty astounding.
Yeah.
That's a huge number, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got 10,000 followers, that 3% isn't gonna buy you macaroni and cheese, you know what I mean?
Right.
So, you're not really getting that kind of penetration.
Mm-hmm.
When 2,000,000 people or let's say with 150 million people, you're talking about like 5,000,000 people see the post that you put in there,
Mm-hmm.
and then they go and they share it or they comment on it, right? That's enough to start a firestorm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's enough to really make sure that more of those 150 million people see it because inevitably some of their friends are going to share it and then all of a sudden it's seen by more people.
Right.
But initially it's only seen by 3% of the people. So you have to understand how that works. So you need more people, man.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like to see it. So nuance there. That was a good one, Brent.
Thank you.
Number 13, how about, like, the most kick-ass editorial playlist placement on Spotify?
I still feel like that's still exposure. It's one source and it's gonna be gone. It's gonna cycle out, right?
Yeah, it's exposure, and it's not even, like, as repetitive as radio,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? So being on editorial playlist for 1 month, unless you're, like, in the top 10,
Yeah.
right, on that, like, you're not gonna get as many streams or listens, let's say, as you would being in heavy rotation in a market for a month,
Mhm.
right? You're gonna get exposed less on that. So, hey, are you gonna make some money on that? Yeah.
Mhm.
But is the repetition there enough? Like, if you think about heavy rotation, which is 70 spins a week, you're talking about and those 70 spins a week are largely gonna be during the peak listener hours, so it's not over a 24-hour period, it's, like,
Mhm.
really over, like, a 8 to 12-hour period each day, so you're talking about every hour to every 90 minutes depending on how they're gonna roll with that,
Mhm.
and that is an onslaught of content back when nobody had anything else to listen to.
Right, yeah.
And being in an editorial playlist, man, how often is the same person hearing that song
Mhm.
over and over and over again? It's nowhere near as often, which is why the discoverability factor on Spotify sucks. And so I'm not saying Spotify sucks. We just got through on my last episode talking about how you can make money now where you couldn't before on Spotify.
Mhm.
Spotify is good for making money, but Spotify is a distributor.
Yeah.
Spotify streams are the result of what happens when you have market penetration
Mhm.
and exposure, but on a different level, right? Like you get big exposure, you're gonna get some Spotify streams. If you get market penetration, you're gonna get a lot more Spotify streams. But the playlist thing is just not a marketing tool as much as it is like just a way to make some money. God bless, go do it.
Yeah.
How about consistent weekly content that's paid traffic on Facebook ads for 6 months?
That seems more like market penetration.
It's market penetration.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can geographically choose, right? Like for Mackenzie O'Brien, I can choose Chicago,
Yeah.
the greater Chicago area, right? The people that are gonna go to those clubs. And I can, for 6 months, I can pound the bejesus out of her music videos and all this kind of content in Chicago. So she's always in the feed. And then all of a sudden, oh, she's opening up for Parker McCollum.
Yeah.
She's opening up for Kylie Morgan. Wow,
Mhm.
let's go see it, right? We're gonna go see Kylie anyway. Let's get there early because I love her.
Let's get there early, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is so cool. And then all of a sudden, the market penetration starts to happen. See how with market penetration, like the live show becomes more powerful,
Mhm.
right? It sort of feeds into, it adds legitimacy to, it's a symbiotic relationship to, etc.
Yeah, I remember, listening to on one of my streaming services, one of those, like, New Boots or New Nashville kinda thing, whatever, a lot of indie stuff on there, and I remember hearing this song, "Side Piece." I thought, "Oh, that's cool, that's clever, I like it." I heard it a few times on that playlist. Couldn't tell you who did it. I mean, looked up, like, "Oh, who is that? Okay, forgot the name," whatever. And then, I don't know, a while later, you and I think, were at the, 3rd and Lindsley, or maybe you weren't there, but it was the Maggie Boss show, Maggie Baugh and Friends, 'cause I'd
I was there
written.
with you, I think.
Okay, so I'd written Maggie, and so, like, I'm gonna go out, see what's going on here, and it was a lot of, like, TikTokers and that kinda stuff, and then they're like, "Here's Julia Cole," and she comes up and she sings "Side Piece." I was like, "Oh!" Like, some Tumblr started clicking in, and it's like, "Okay, yeah," and I don't remember if she did that song or not even, but, I guess she did do that song, that's how I put it together. I was like, "Oh, she's the one." It helped set that in my memory more, 'cause it would've kinda been gone, like, yeah, some artist did that one song I thought was kinda cool for a minute, then I
There
didn't,
you
but
go.
then another, and especially in a different format.
It's a different anchor. It's a different anchor.
Yeah, it's like a different hook point almost, but yeah, saw, like, "Oh, there's her, saw her live, heard the thing live," different context and everything just helped sync that in more.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I mean, how many times does that happen when you go, before streaming and all this, when you go to a concert, you get there early to catch the opening act, you're like, "Oh, they sing that song?"
Yeah, yeah.
And, like, you know the song because it was on the radio, but you just haven't heard it enough times to connect it with the artist.
Mhm.
The branding hasn't happened yet, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're getting the songs getting exposed,
Mhm.
but they haven't connected it to the artist yet. And y'all need to know, like, I mean, I hope this exercise here is kinda giving you, like, a better illustration of psychologically what happens with that because, man, major labels are having problems
Mhm.
branding artists. Like, people are falling in love with a song and a playlist, but they're not connecting it to an artist yet.
Yeah.
Because they're not pushing the video content, man.
Mhm.
They're not like there's nothing like that happening. So if they would
That's why they're trying to get him on Kimmel
yeah,
or one of the late night shows or get a guest spot on, like, The Bachelor or whatever, when they're
yes,
dancing and they're like, "Oh, now we have Billy Currington singing his new sexy single,"
that's right.
or whatever, or it's on one of those things where like, "Oh, I've been hearing it. Oh, and oh, now I see the artist, and okay, there we go." There is a good book by Ken Cragen called Life is a Contact Sport. Have you read that yet, Johnny?
I haven't read that. That's on my list now.
Okay, so I read that like my freshman year in Nashville, and so he is old school. I mean, he's probably passed away now. If you're not, thanks for listening. Sorry, but anyway, he was Kenny Rogers, Travis Tritt manager, other
Yeah,
people.
he passed away. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Trisha Yearwood, I think early on with her. So this mega manager, and then also helped put together like Hands Across America in the '80s,
I remember that.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
And I remember him talking about the kind of the plateau strategy or whatever to kick an artist up to a higher plateau. They use like the 3-prong approach, like 3 event in a short period of time, which basically what that is to help create market penetration. And I could see that at work with an artist like Trace Adkins back in the day when, Trace has had some hits. This is maybe right around the time of Badonkadonk or whatever, but he was kind of a mid-card artist kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in a short period of time, he had songs like, I think, did he have, yeah, You're Gonna Miss This,
Mm-hmm.
I think was his. So he had like good little run of number one. So he had like You're Gonna Miss This. And he had a book, his book came out, like an autobiography kind of thing. So that was getting promoted. Oh, and he was on Celebrity Apprentice.
Yeah.
Like all within like that real kind of compressed time frame. So for a little bit there, everywhere you go, you turn on the radio, there's Trace. You turn on TV, there's Trace. You go to your bookstore, walk down the aisle at Barnes & Noble, there's Trace.
Yeah.
Oh,
Market penetration.
each of those things were exposure. You add them together, right, in these different lanes, different avenues, and it becomes market penetration. So is that part of it too? Like, hey, we have these different lanes. We have the TV, the radio, and the print.
Yeah. So we're trying to like what we try to do at Daredevil is okay, how can we do that but not on a broadcast platform, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we need to have lots of different kinds of content to push because the consumers get to choose what they're going to see,
Uh-huh.
unlike television or radio, where a program director is deciding what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So if they've seen it more than twice, they're going to be like, they know what that is. So they're not going to watch it again. So we have to put a different piece of content with the same hook, right, to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, put that together with, let's say, like a onslaught of people digitally that you're pushing paid content out into their feed. Now, we get to select, unlike broadcast, unlike radio, unlike MTV, unlike television. We know who consumed it, who liked it, right? We know who like really liked it and really consumed it.
Mm-hmm.
And we can select just those people to make sure they see the second one. So we're spending part of the budget to create the repetition, but only on the people that we know reacted to it the right way, right? That react to it.
Yeah.
But then what else can we do? Okay, now you're coming through on tour.
Mm-hmm.
How about those digital billboards that you see like around Nashville and stuff
Yeah.
are remarkably inexpensive for what you get.
Mm-hmm.
A little 8-second snippet or something like that might be like $2,500 depending on where it is, like on a major throughway.
Yeah.
Because you're splitting that cost instead of buying a whole billboard for 50 grand for a month.
Yeah.
You're splitting it with like all these other accounts that are just getting it, man. So you're sitting at a stoplight where you're stuck in traffic, and here I am in your feed, and then I'm on this billboard, and I'm coming through on tour.
Yeah.
Right? Like 1, 2, 3. Like how many different ways can you make that happen? Collabs with other artists and their people. When you start asking these kinds of questions, that's when you're going down the right path and you're chasing the right shiny object, which is market penetration, and not like radio, for instance, which used to frickin' deliver market penetration.
Yeah. It had reach and frequency.
But market penetration is the key, and it's inconsistency
Mm-hmm.
is how you get market penetration. So this is why NASCAR exists, because they get a crap load of money from big, huge products of advertising ads because we're going to watch the M&M car go around a circle for 3 hours straight.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen,
It's a billboard on
right,
4 wheels. Yeah.
they're still bootlegging liquor, man. Like it's exactly right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the difference. So market penetration is what's going to move the needle. Exposure can get you to market penetration. But if you're going to get like exposed by one thing, I mean, I know people that think like, oh, they're going to go do America's Got Talent. They're very excited about it. That's awesome. But if you don't have something in place to take advantage of that massive amount of exposure,
Mhm.
then it's not going to make you famous at all. You're going to be forgotten.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, even if you're the freaking winner of American Idol, here's another test. I'll bet if I put a gun to your head, there's like been 18 or 20 winners of American Idol. I bet you can't name 5.
I'd have a hole in my head so fast. 'Cause
You
I
can't
couldn't do it.
name 5. And they
Yeah.
got the most amount of exposure
Mhm.
that you can get from American Idol because they won it.
Yeah.
But it's because you're forgotten unless you're doing something to get in there, in front of their face,
Mhm.
constantly there. You're gonna get some, when you're on those shows, you're gonna get some. Are you gonna get the cover of Rolling Stone because you're doing well on The Voice? No. Is The Voice gonna get the cover of Rolling Stone? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the judges, they might be on there.
Yeah.
Oh, and then talking about a brief mention of who's doing really well this season and how that's going. But that's not going to sell it. You don't have enough gas in the tank in terms of marquee value to get the cover of Rolling Stone because you're in the top 10 of American Idol.
Correct.
I don't even know if you're the winner.
Yeah.
You'd have to put out a record that did something really well. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then do something else. So there it is, guys. Know the difference. Market penetration and exposure. They're both necessary, but you're not going to move the needle. So like if you've got like limited amounts of money, like
Mhm.
really limited amounts of money, but you get this big gig coming up, man, where you're going to open up for a national in your market. That's a great place to spend some money,
Yeah.
right? Like, and guess what? You're also going to scratch the back of the headliner.
Mhm.
And if you do it right, I've done this before, you're going to out-promote the promoter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And maybe you create some friggin' relationships. Who knows who manages them?
Right.
Maybe you get on the short list and, hey, the next time one of their other artists comes through town, put them on the bill. Like, let's make this happen.
You might create the opportunity for more work.
Yeah, that's right. And content matters. Like this Thursday, I'll close by saying this. This Thursday, Janelle and I are super stoked because, I mean, we fly out Friday morning at freaking 5 o'clock to go to Josh's party in the Desert Festival.
Mhm.
But Thursday night, we're going to the basement
Okay.
because the Nicotine Dolls are playing there, right?
Mhm.
And Janelle found these guys before he was on America's Got Talent, right? Like she was just like, oh my God, listen to this voice. This guy's amazing. And we just both fell in love with him. I mean, just a great, great artist. This guy's a great singer. And then they kind of blow up and get a bunch of exposure on America's Got Talent. And then this kid just starts pounding like cover songs and stuff and putting them out. And dude, like they're great. Now they're still coming through playing the basement. That's a small venue, but they're going out to open for Mark Broussard, right?
Mhm.
But there's regular content that's coming out. I don't know how their digital thing works, but they're trying to back that up with some tours and stuff. But this is how you kind of get this done when you have a boatload of talent, man.
Yep.
And know the difference. So anyway, that's it, guys. I got a gift for you for hanging out with us all the way through. This is going to help you understand the difference between digital and broadcast. It's all about how it's consumed. And once you really clearly understand that and you really know, then you can start making decisions about how to spend your money and what's going to make sense to create market penetration. And you're going to start scratching your head and asking yourself questions that are going to be the right questions. So your brain is going to give you like the right answers, right?
Mhm.
It's not about going viral. God bless you if you go viral. But if you don't have virality based on a solid plan built around market penetration and fundamentals, then you're going to be here and you're going to be gone. And that's going to be it.
That's right.
So go to giftfromjohnny.com, JOHNNY, giftfromjohnny.com. It's called Whoever Owns the Traffic Rules the Road. And this is going to help really put some clarity into your promotion brain on how to think about this. So giftfromjohnny.com, just tell me where to send it. That's the end of another Killer C.L.I.M.B podcast episode. Join the C.L.I.M B community, subscribe to the podcast, tell a friend. This podcast exists because we want to learn.
And we'll see you at the top.